The crowd always roars for the spectacle of a god descending into the sand. They see a myth, an impossible warrior born only for glory and a noble death. But I never saw the gods that the poets and the politicians eulogized so loudly. My world was not one of shining myths, but of torn flesh and shattered bone. They cheered for a clean death, a glorious end worthy of an epic poem. I worked tirelessly to deny them that very ending, stitching together valuable assets for another fight. The greatest lie is that every battle in the arena was a fight to the death. The truth is that a gladiator was an investment far too expensive to be wasted. We did not feed them on wine and roasted meats as you might well imagine. Their bodies were built on a foundation of barley, making them the horderich or barley men. This diet was my prescription, a strategic layer of fat to protect against shallow cuts. It was a fleshy armor to absorb the blows that were meant only for show. These men were slaves and prisoners, yet they were also the empire's biggest celebrities. Their names were scratched onto walls by admirers in every city from Rome to Britannia. However, this adoration from afar meant little within the cold stone walls of the ludus. Here, they were not idols to be worshipped, but instruments of a bloody trade. So forget the stories of noble sacrifice and the grand epics written by senators. I will show you the truth that I saw and touched with my own hands. Most of the men who ended up on my table began their journey in chains. They were the bitter fruit of distant wars, harvested from the forests of Germania or Gaul. The long march south was the first true test of their endurance and their spirit. The weak and the sick were simply left behind, a cruel but efficient selection process. At the slave market, I would assist the Lanista in his grim acquisitions of men. He saw potential profit. I saw the architecture of bone, sinew, and latent resilience. Others came not from foreign lands, but from our own courts and dungeons. These condemned criminals were a different breed, their bodies often soft and undisciplined. The strangest of all were the free men who chose this life out of desperation. They signed away their names and bodies, chasing glory to escape the crushing grip of debt. Upon entering the ludus, each man swore the oath to be burned, bound, and beaten. This was the moment their old lives were cauterized, leaving only the gladiator behind. Their arrival at my school was not a grand entrance into a hall of heroes. They came through a reinforced gate into a world of stone, sweat, and discipline. My first task was to catalog each man, a meticulous inventory of his physical potential. I charted their scars, tested their limbs, and assessed the foundation I had to build upon. The ludus was a machine for forging men into weapons, and it ran on a strict, unyielding schedule. Their day began before the sun, announced not by a rooster but by a guard's harsh bellow. Training started not with swords, but with a heavy wooden post called the palace. They spent countless hours striking this unmoving foe, a mind-numbing but essential ritual. Each man was sculpted for a specific purpose, a key designed for a single lock. The nimble Retiarius with his net was the antithesis of the heavily armored secutor. I was not a trainer of fighters, but a manager of their physical economy. I monitored their exertion, watching for the subtle signs of a strain that could ruin an investment. A strict hierarchy governed their lives, with the Primus Palace enjoying better rations and quarters. Skill was the only currency that mattered within these walls, separating the veterans from the novices. They formed fragile bonds of camaraderie in the shared hardship of their daily existence. Yet, every man knew his brother in training could one day be his opponent in the sand. More of my work involved treating the mundane injuries of training than grievous battle wounds. I dealt in sprained ankles, torn muscles, and the constant friction of the training sword. When the day's brutal work was done, they were not granted freedom but confinement. The ludus was their home and their prison, its gates bolted shut against the world.